She began her career at the Canadian International Development Agency. Later, she became a successful businesswoman and was actively involved in her community. In October 2015, she was elected as a Member of Parliament and is currently the Minister of International Development. The Honorable Mary Claude Bibot, it's an honor to have you with us today.
It's my pleasure to be with you.
Since the Canadians have voted for the Liberal Party 3 years ago, what significant changes has taken place?
Well, if we talk about international development, since it is my mandate, I was asked by Prime Minister Trudeau to refocus our international assistance on the poorest and the most vulnerable and on fragile states. So I've undertaken a very important consultation. 15,000 people participated in 65 countries because it was very important to listen from the people we want to support. And we came to the conclusion that if we want to end poverty, if we want to have a more inclusive and more prosperous and more peaceful world, we really have to empower women and girls. So we launched our Feminist International Assistance Policy in June 2017. So every project we do, it could be in agriculture, education, health, good governance, peace and security. All our partners must demonstrate that they consult women locally, that the women are part of the decision making, and that they are empowered throughout the implementation of the projects.
Okay, talking about empowering women. It's proven in many aspects that the empowering of women in senior managerial position has improved the work ethics and the sensitivity of men towards women in many cases. What can you suggest to the Lebanese groups that are fighting for women's right to increase awareness of senior management to accept women equality?
Mm-hmm. Women equality is obviously to us human rights, women's rights. But it is also good business. And it has been demonstrated that when you have women as members of the board of directors, for example, the business do better business. They are more profitable. And I can tell you, for being a member of the cabinet with the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, we are half women and half men around the cabinet table. And my old man minister's friend, they told me that we take decisions differently. We talk less about politics, we talk more about people. And it is the same in business. It brings more diversity in the discussions, so it can only bring better decisions when you have a better understanding of, for example, the grassroots of the situation you're discussing at the moment. So having inclusive board of directors or inclusive cabinet table, it definitely brings better decisions.
Yeah, from your observation about Lebanon, do you feel that Lebanese women are doing enough to improve awareness to break through this barrier of equality?
I visited Lebanon once, so I wouldn't pretend that I understand enough to give advice, but as a general advice, I think women must trust their capacity. Too often, and I think it's the same in most countries, when we are asked for something, we always wonder, are we ready to do that? Are we ready to undertake such position? So I think we have all to be more confident in our capacities. We're able to learn, and our contribution can be different, but as worthwhile as any others. So it's really important that we go for it. We go for whatever goals we have in mind, and to bring other women with us as well.
Do you have any intention to introduce such programs or assist women groups in Lebanon to enhance the equality for women program?
Yes, we are supporting Lebanon a lot because you are hosting so many refugees, and I want to thank your community for being so generous, especially in the education sector. We all know that it's so important. The best place for a kid to be is in a school, and it's the best way for their integration and for a good cohabitation between different communities. And once again, talking about this feminist policy and the link with education is that if we want to have empowered women, we need educated girls. So it's important to make sure that these girls are in school with the boys and they don't stop when they are teenager because of many different reasons. And yes, this is why we want to work with local communities, local organizations to make sure to find the best ways to keep girls in schools.
Yeah. You seem to be adversary on health services for women and children, and Canada is a forerunner to implement these health programs. How do you implement such programs in foreign countries?
Well, obviously as a Canadian minister, when I advocate in front of my colleagues at the United Nations, I will speak about sexual and reproductive health and rights very openly, and I'm very bold. And it's important to provoke the conversation. And when I travel around the world, I have these very honest conversations with my colleagues, ministers in different countries. But obviously with our partners in the field, when we work in a community, we have to understand why some cultural norms exist. What are the motivation behind that? We have to talk with the local leaders, local religious leaders, traditional leaders, with the grandmother, for example. So we have to adapt our language, and if the motivation is not women's rights, for example, but it's girls' health, well, we will talk about girls' health if it helps us to end child and early forced marriage, or to end female genital mutilation in other countries. So it's really to advocate and to be bold when we advocate internationally, but to be really respectful of the local community when we are working with them.
How do you choose which country you would implement such programs?
Everywhere Canada works, we have a feminist approach, which means we really want to make sure that our partners listen, include women, and empower women throughout their projects. And when we work in international development, we cannot, enter in a country and get out a few years after because the government changed. Yeah. So we really have an history of collaboration in different countries. We may move a little through the years, depending on the challenges that the countries are facing as well. So we try to be more present where we feel that we can have a real impact. And in other countries, our contribution might be through multilateral organizations, for example.
Regarding your standing on the support for sexual and reproductive health and rights, this must be a very complicated issue to educate people, especially in underdeveloped countries. What kind of support do you get from the government of the countries you are trying to introduce such programs in?
Many times when I have the conversation with the local minister, I can feel that they understand and that they want the best for their daughters and for all the young girls and women in their countries. But they don't always have the political courage to implement it because they feel resistance from their people. So that's why we have to work on both sides. We have to support the local government to build inclusive policies, and in the same time support local organizations, local women's rights organizations, to bring this movement for more respect for women and girls, for girls' education, and once again to end child and early forced marriage, which is really important to me. If we want empowered girls, we need educated girls, so we have to keep them in school and not, stop their life when they are a teenager. So this is really, I think, working with good intentions and good policies, inclusive policies from one side, and building the movement from the grassroots organizations.
Yeah, in regard to gender equality, it's difficult enough to implement this in the modern countries. Do you get enough support in countries who are still in their ways on the equality of women and still treat women secondary to men since they are very much male orientated?
I mean, we do not arrive in a country thinking that we're going to change their world. But once again, every father wants to have a healthy daughter. So this is a way to bring the subject and to help them understand the issues around some harmful practices. So this is the way we try to have this conversation and to push it always a bit further for every girl to be educated and empowered. As the boys are. Actually, if you leave half of the soccer team on the bench, you will not win the game.
Yeah.
So you need, everyone to be contributing to the community, to the economy of the country. If the country wants to develop, and they want, and I think, we all want the best for our people at the end.
Exactly. In regard to the environment, the emissions are affecting much of the people's health by breathing the toxic air. What programs are being introduced to offset this situation, and how will those programs be funded?
Yes. When we arrived 3 years ago, we committed for $2.65 billion on different type of projects to fight against climate change and to help the different communities to be more resilient. So we are participating in different multilateral programs with the World Bank and other banks to really support major change in developing countries, but we are also having different type of program, mainly in the agricultural sector, to be more resilient to droughts and floods and new natural disasters. We are also supporting creating jobs, but in the green energy or green technology sectors. And obviously working with the small island states a lot to help them face the situation, because they are vulnerable to natural disasters, so they have to build their capacities to be able to face it better and then to reconstruct in the most effective way when a hurricane passed by.
Yeah. How do you think legalizing the marijuana benefit the public and the government?
Actually, marijuana was really easily accessible already. We don't all, actually I haven't touched it myself. I have 2 young men in my home, but as a parent and as a minister, member of the government, I think we all have to take this out of the shadows and to face the reality. Marijuana was really accessible already. This is not something that we knew that we bring on the market. Okay. And since we have to admit that the previous system was not effective at all, actually our youth people in Canada are those who use marijuana the most in developed countries. So it was a big fail. What can we do better? So we decided to legalize it, which is not, which doesn't mean it's good for health. We don't want to encourage anyone to do it. But at least what will be on the market will be safe, which is not the case right now. And and we will be much more tough on the adults who will either sell or give marijuana to our youth. Yeah. But we will not, for those young people who will be caught with a little, portion of marijuana, they won't have to live the rest of their life with a criminal dossier, yes, which will, because of something they've done when they were young, will after that, they won't be able to get a job or to travel. So we want to protect our youth from the criminals who are selling really bad things. Make it available for adults who understand what they're doing in a safe way. So we have to find a better way than what we used to do before, because it was a big fail. So let's be honest, face the situation, talk about it, talk about it with our kids, explain that it's not good for their health, it's not good for the development of their brain. We will do much more advocacy, information program on TV and everything. So we have to face the situation.
Okay. Do you have a final say to the Lebanese community groups that are fighting hard to implement equality, women's and children's health, and helping the environment?
Oh, so many important subjects. I think working together, looking at the data, making decisions based on facts, based on evidence, help us make better decision, and being inclusive in our decision-making process as well. Minister
Mari Bيبو, on behalf of الأخبار Canada newspaper team, we would like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.